The greatest challenge that the United States faces in this present moment: wealth inequality. The fact that this country is living paycheck to paycheck, 60%, according to NPR, are living paycheck to paycheck. So what does that mean? That means that 60% of people in the United States are one financial emergency away from financial ruin. Now, there are many historians, political philosophers, economists. They all agree on one thing: that you can judge the health of a country based on how big and large the middle class is. If the middle class is abundant and there's a high presence of that social class, the country should be doing good, fiscally, politically, socially. That's the greatest indicator of a good society, how they treat their middle class. Now, for the longest time, the United States was the haven for the middle class. This is where dreams are made of. You work hard, you hustle, you build a life for yourself, and you can make it. You can make it in this country. But honestly, I feel like that dream is eroding, and it's dying slowly. And I know you feel it too. If you're in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, heck, even if you're retired or in your 70s, some of y'all are living paycheck to paycheck. It's tough. Life is very, very tough right now. You know, it didn't used to be this way. And I keep harping back to that. But when you look back in post-World War II U.S. history, not to bore you with historical facts and stuff, but I think it's worth addressing. You could afford a house on a single salary. You could raise a family on a single salary. Try doing that today. Fast forward in 2025. Try doing that today. You cannot. If you're a single family unit, husband and wife, you better be working full time and bringing in at least $120,000 to have a fighting chance. Just to have a fighting chance in this country. Things are hard out there. It's hard. You know, I think it's a very sad reality that Americans, especially young Americans, are priced out of buying a home. We're forced to rent. You know, we're basically conditioned now to accept that our life should be based on subscriptions, not ownership, subscriptions. And I'm going to go down a rabbit hole on this because I feel that life, especially in 2025, in the age and era of instant gratification, endless social media, doom scrolling, AI, you know, it's impossible to have ownership. Now, going on the subject of subscriptions, there's subscriptions for streaming services, subscriptions for, even in your car, a utility that used to go forward, backwards, right and left, something that's simple that you go in from point A to point B, has now become a complex utility in itself. They're all computerized, massively complicated, full of electronics. This is just one example of how technology, to some degree, has complicated many people's lives. But anyways, going back to wealth inequality. This is an issue that ironically should unite all social classes, whether if you're rich, poor, or in the middle class. This is an issue that should concern us all, because the health of a country is determined on how well a middle class is. And right now, the financial state of the middle class in this country is dying, and that should concern us all. And it all goes down to, us living in an era where, and I'm not railing against like capitalism, because despite its flaws, I feel that a capitalistic economy is still the greatest system. Even though it has its flaws, it certainly does. And trust me, I'm going to get blown up in the comments on this, but it's still the greatest system. Because in a system like that, barring that it is a fair and just system, that's a system that you could still build your life, okay? Whether if you're building your own entrepreneurial dream, you can do that in a capitalistic society. What's happening now, and not to bring in like on a historical example, and not to bore you on a historic example, but I think the greatest president that this country had in the United States was Teddy Roosevelt. And what Teddy Roosevelt advocated for was for a just financial system, for a just capitalist system, a healthy capitalist society, not a monopolistic economy. Monopolistic capitalism is where you have all these massive corporations that are dictating policy and economics in the US. I'm talking about the big box stores, the Amazons, the Googles. Those kind of companies are concentrating the greatest amount of wealth in this country. And it shouldn't be that way. Honestly, I feel that like there needs to be that sort of restoration of fair competition. Not equity, but fair competition. So allowing people to compete in the markets fairly. That's, one potential solution in addressing, financial inequality. I'm not saying that I have the answers. These are just observations that I've seen in our society. I think this is a major issue that needs to be addressed in this country. If it's not fixed, this is something that could ruin the US. And it needs to be addressed by all, whether you're rich, poor, middle class. This is an issue that should concern us all. There's a reason why people in their 20s, in their 30s, even in their 40s, are not having kids. There's a reason why the birth rate in the United States is so low, almost at historic lows. Because if the country is living paycheck to paycheck, 60% of the country, that's a majority, why would those people bring in kids if they can't support themselves? You know, these are things that really need to be addressed in this country. And again, I don't have the solution. You know, I'm just a random 34-year-old walking down a forest in Florida, ranting on YouTube. But it's a sentiment that I know people share out there, is that it's tough out there. Life is very difficult. But that's my rant for today. Wealth inequality. You know, it's an issue that needs to be addressed. It unites us all, but no one's talking about it. You know, at least not the people in power that really need to address that. But I think there's hope, because I feel more people are talking about this topic, and hopefully it leads to positive change. You know, where people in our age group can afford a home, to live comfortably, and to be debt-free, living abundantly. Now, despite what I'm saying, it's a very depressing topic, I get it. But there is a way that you can control at least some of this unfortunate economic conditions. The main factor is to stay out of debt. Don't get into unnecessary financial obligations. Don't get into a new car if you can't afford it. Car prices these days are absolutely outrageous. It's idiotic to sign up for a vehicle loan with such high interest rates that is going to drain your bank account. Spend on what you only need, not what you want. Focus on your needs, not your wants. Live on less than what you make. Those are 3 simple tips right there that can basically make you recession-proof, wealth inequality-proof, and take you out of not having to live paycheck to paycheck. It's the end of my rant. Until next time.